So Joe, what's your favorite Radiohead song?
Oh, I really like Creep.
Welcome to Tune Fever, baby.
Yo, what is up, you guys? We are back. This is our second album ranking video where we listen to every disc in an artist's discography and we rank them in order of worst disc to best disc. But yeah, that's the idea here. It's fun because it's a you get to listen to an artist's entire discography and just kind of deep dive into something. And Radiohead is a band that me and Joe both really like. And so right now, introducing Joe, who's been on the channel before. Say hi.
Hi.
Suppy. So Joe, what is your relationship with Radiohead? Like, how'd you get into them and all that?
Um, well, actually trying to remember how I first started listening to them. But I guess anyway, and we were joking about this earlier, I used to just not like them. Because I don't know, I guess I just didn't really understand it and there are some albums I liked and there are some albums I just didn't, and we'll get more into that in the actual ranking of the discs. But a while back, I think it was around when I listened to In Rainbows for that was one that I liked. And then after that, yeah, I don't know, I just got more into it as time went on. There wasn't like a specific moment or anything. I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm starting to like this, or at least I'm starting to see why people would like this now.
Yeah.
And but yeah, now there's however, I feel like my opinions are still way different than like a lot of Radiohead fans, how they would organize this list of discs. But I do really like them a lot now, so that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. And In Rainbows was kind of a gateway drug for me as well in Radiohead. I remember pretty early on I heard the song Creep on Rock Band. That was my first time I ever heard Radiohead. Honestly, that's true. And I actually like that song, which we'll probably talk about later, our opinions on the song Creep. Because some people hate it. But yeah, I actually like it. But anyway, that was the first time I heard Radiohead, and at the time, it didn't really stand out to me that much. But later, I was watching the Grammys, and Radiohead did a version of their song 15 Step with like a high
Mm.
school marching band on stage at the Grammys. And I thought it was wildly entertaining. And that was what got me interested in Radiohead. Yeah, I saw that as a child during like the live broadcasting of the Grammys. And so I looked into their music and I heard In Rainbows because 15 Step is on it. Yeah, and I found it to be a pretty unique experience because it was kind of unlike anything I've heard at the time. And yeah, there were certain things about it that stood out to me a ton, and kind of pushed me in a direction where I wanted to check out more Radiohead. And I would consider myself a pretty huge fan of the band now. But yeah, that's that. So next I want to talk about the albums that we're actually going to be ranking in this video. Okay, so we've zoomed in on the albums that we're going to be ranking. We're only doing the studio albums because it makes sense to do that. Of course, Radiohead has other releases like EPs and live stuff and whatever. And some of that stuff's really, really cool. But we're not actually ranking those things. We're just ranking the studio albums. And so the top line here is going to stay there the whole video. That way you can see like what year it came out, because that's what those 2-digit number means. Those are the years these albums came out. And the other two rows, we're going to like click and drag to show you guys, like, as we're ranking the albums and discussing our rankings, we're going to move those to down below on our ranking line. All right. But yeah, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually start the ranking. So without further ado, I suppose I can start. My least favorite Radiohead album is The King of Limbs.
All right. Trying to see how I space this. I don't know. How about here?
Just stick it all the way at the end, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, there you go. It's that bad?
Looks great. And now what's your least favorite?
My least favorite is also The King of Limbs.
Ah,
so
we are in accordance with one another on this particular
so far.
pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess one reason why I think this is my least favorite is because I think everything here is sort of meandering. I don't think the ideas are very strong. Of course, this is kind of more of like a Tom York album than it is a Radiohead album in a way. Although there are certainly cool contributions from the rest of the band, I kind of think that Tom York kind of control freaked this one a little bit. Because it sounds like some of his solo stuff and like the direction he's gone in with some of his solo stuff, especially at the time, that sort of solo stuff. And there's stuff that I do like on it. Of course, Lotus Flower is a really, really good Radiohead song. Honestly, I have to say that none of the other songs on this album even matter to me. And I know that other people really do like Codex and Bloom. Yeah. And some other stuff. But honestly, these songs don't really matter to me. But what's kind of funny about it to me is that the King of Limbs, they have like an In the Basement recording. You know how they do? And that In the Basement recording is really cool. And of course they do not only the King of Limbs songs, they do some other songs from some other albums as well. But that In the Basement session is honestly it's cool. Really, really cool. And it's these same songs. And so I think that's interesting that it turned out so much more interesting and better than the studio album. But yeah, that's, it's at the bottom of my list. It's not horrible or anything. I just don't really care about it very much.
Cool.
How about you?
Yeah, for me, I do like some of the ideas on this, but every song is just this repetitive loop. It's just cyclical, and it's not like, kind of like you said, it's not terrible, but it doesn't really seem to go anywhere. I like, Lotus Flower, and I do like some of towards the end, Codex, Give Up the Ghost, Separator. I'm just, but for even those songs, I kind of had to go back to because I didn't remember that well. This is an album as a whole. I don't know as well some of the other albums, but I don't know. It's just one that's never really stuck with me. I'm trying to think of what else. That is super interesting that you would say for the live session for them to play the same songs and it's a lot better.
Have you ever heard it?
That's actually really cool. I have not. I've watched. There's the In the Basement of In Rainbows, which that's the one I really like, but I haven't watched the King of Limbs.
It's really good too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next album. Here, you pick first. What's your next least?
My next least is Pablo Honey.
Okay.
This one here.
Yeah, that's fine.
There. I don't know.
I agree with you. Pablo Honey. And yeah, I sort of struggle with this because it's interesting. Okay, I guess that Pablo Honey is in 8th place. I really kind of wanted to put it in 7th place because the album that is in 7th place for me, I'm more interested in Pablo Honey than I am interested in that one. But I do think that one, when we get to it, is a better album than Pablo Honey. But it's this kind of weird issue for me. Pablo Honey has its moments of sheer brilliance. And I will say the song Creep is one of those moments. And, obviously for everybody that's about to click off the video, just because I said that, everybody who is such a big Radiohead fan that they can't like Creep anymore, I don't understand that at all. I think Creep is a really, really good song. And, there's people that don't like Creep for other reasons too. But I know that there's kind of a thing about like if you like the song Creep, you're not really a Radiohead fan or whatever. I disagree. The song Creep is wonderful. There's also other moments of brilliance on the album, like the song Vegetable on this album, which is sort of a deep cut, but that's been a consistent, really, really good Radiohead song. That's just what I think. I really like the song Vegetable. And there's other stuff on the album too, but I would say that maybe Vegetable is my favorite on the whole thing. There's also a lot of material on this that I really don't care much about at all. Sort of like I was saying with The King of Limbs. But the thing about it is Pablo Honey is a better album than King of Limbs because there's more that I care about. Honestly, neither one of them is really an album that I care about. And The King of Limbs is a CD that I do not own. And Pablo Honey is a CD that I own because it was given to me by a friend when I was in high school, which was nice. I think he stole it from
That's
his
cool.
dad. I could be wrong about that, but I think he stole it from his dad and gave it to me for my birthday. Very, very nice gift. And
cool.
like I said, there's stuff on it that I like, but in terms of the discography of Radiohead, it's low on my list. Yeah.
Sure.
And that was an opinion that I came to over time, because it's definitely an album that I still find very interesting and kind of perplexing in a way. I am kind of, it's a very kind of mystical, like I'm kind of mystified by this album and what it actually is. Yeah, I have kind of a pet interest with it. But how about you? Why is it your 8th place?
For me, I think it's better than King of Limbs because it has ideas. But even so, again, it's not, of course, like it's not terrible, but like it's just kind of boring, I think. And but I mean, you can tell like they were still, at least to me, in my opinion, they're still trying to find their sound. Like, for example, I think the album is, some songs are just really, really loud.
True.
Creep, it's not one that I like as much, but it has that moment where right before the chorus where the chorus,
Oh yeah.
and I think I really enjoy that part of the song, and I kind of like how, again, your Radiohead fans aren't gonna like me saying positive things about Creep. I like how kind of dark and kind of gloomy it is. Like, I don't know, with like some of the lighter parts, and then it gets loud, which actually I was just talking about how I don't like that it's loud, but I kind of like it on that one. Also, the song
Well, hold on before
Ripcord
you move on. Creep is literally a 1993 mood. Okay, anyway, your turn.
Dude, it's a vibe. Well,
Bruh.
I was gonna say I really like the song Ripcord for the same reason. It's just kind of this quiet, I guess not like quiet, but lower. And then you got your, I almost think of it like as a clicking with the drums. I don't know, but then it gets da na na na, and it gets really big. I do like the song Vegetable, and that song is also a mood.
Uh,
It's it makes me feel not like sad, but kind of emotional, I guess, like an emotional attachment, maybe not in the way or as much as like some other Radiohead songs or some of these other albums get to me. Um, but for what this album is, it's not like terrible. I put it higher than King of Limbs, but it's still not one I like would go back to. I remember it better than King of Limbs, so that's good. But yeah, I think that's how I feel about that one.
yeah.
So
Another thing about Pablo Honey is that it feels like a more solid effort than King of Limbs. And especially because of like the expectation. Like when King of Limbs was going to come out, everyone's wanting a new Radiohead album, and then it comes out and it has 7 songs on it, and everyone thought there was going to be a part 2, and there was never a part 2. And I remember living through that because it wasn't that long ago. I'm old enough to remember 2011. Yeah, so there's that to it also. Pablo Honey, it really feels like it feels like effort, and it doesn't feel
you
like
can tell
a
they
loop that they pressed play on, like King of Limbs
well,
does.
with Pablo Honey, you can tell that they went for it. Like
Yeah.
they were searching for an idea, and yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of good ideas on Pablo Honey. But yeah, as we both know, Radiohead's sound has changed quite a lot over time. It all sounds like Radiohead though, and I think that's interesting. And I suppose there's kind of obvious reasons of why that might be the case. One of those obvious reasons is Tom, spelled like Thom, but his voice is kind of an obvious reason. It's a great voice. Sounds really cool in this music. I'm not sure that his voice really lends itself well to other kinds of music, but in Radiohead, his voice is really good. It's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's so many like moments in Radiohead songs where Tom York's voice is just ridiculously awesome. And it helps kind of tie Radiohead all together. And then I also think that there's other reasons why Radiohead always sounds like Radiohead, even whenever their sound changes. One idea behind that is kind of the progression in guitar playing of Johnny Greenwood. And you hear him get better over time and get really creative and have clever ideas and stuff. And then another one is Phil Selway with his drums. He has like a very calculated, sort of cold feeling. I would say it's like an approach. He approaches it in a very like intentional and musical, sparse way. Whenever you listen to Radiohead's drums throughout their career, they're very intentional decisions, not a note out of place. And I think that Phil Selway's drumming really carries through Radiohead's whole discography in a cool way. And again, that's kind of something that ties it all together. Another thing that I think ties Radiohead together is that their chord progressions, they tend to have certain things that are like go-tos. Some people observe that like they move in minor thirds a lot between chords. So they'll like play a C chord and then they'll play like an E flat major chord. And then another thing that they'll do is they'll like play a chord and then they'll go just like a half step down to whatever chord that would be. So like a C major chord, and then they'll take a half step down to like a B major chord, and they do stuff like that all the time. And so I think that there's kind of some chord progression stuff in Radiohead songs that always helps it to sound like Radiohead. Also, they just use some really wild chords sometimes, and especially a bit into their career. They start getting really adventurous and experimenting into different kinds of chords and kind of incorporating a lot of different elements into their sound that are not in normal like indie rock bands. I think Radiohead sort of paved a new path in indie rock. And it sort of became like an art rock thing, whereas at the beginning I would say it was less so. It was kind of a natural development as it went along.
Cool.
But unless you have something you'd like to input here, I'm ready to go to the next album.
No, I think you covered it really well. I think we should move on.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. My least favorite, or my next least favorite. So this is 7th place. It's the Bins, and I know that you're not very happy with me about that.
No, we'll get to the bends for me, and no one's gonna be happy with where I put that one.
Yeah.
My number 7 choice is okay. Yeah, I want to make sure I pulled from your row. My 7th place is Amnesiac. Is this one?
Hilarious to me.
Right,
That's
right
so
here.
funny. This is really
This
the difference between you and I.
Yeah, this
Our
shows
past
how
conversations
opposite
about
we are.
Radiohead. This is really it. Yeah, we've talked about before how the Bins is really the
how
stuff
wrong
that
I
like
am.
I'm so uninterested in the Bins, Like when I listen to it, it's like, yep, I mean it sounds like Radiohead. and I don't care about any of it. I mean, there's not even standout songs on this thing. But here's the thing about the Bins. It's absolutely a better album than Pablo Honey. It absolutely is. but Pablo Honey has stuff that stands out, so I think I care about it more.
I see.
But yeah, the Bends, I mean, it's so forgettable to me. Yeah, it's so forgettable. But I know that it's one that you quite enjoy. And you know, I'm noticing Amnesiac is here. And it's kind of, you know, I really like Amnesiac, and we'll get there later in my list, but yeah, I'll say that much. Your turn.
Sure. And that is funny for you to have to make that choice between an album that is just not great, but with standout moments, but then an album that doesn't have, like, at least to you, doesn't have the moments, but is just consistently better.
Yeah, it's weird for
you.
me. Mm-hmm.
And I've run to that before, not with Radiohead, but I think with other disc rankings. So, do you have anything else to share about that?
Nah.
About the Bends? Okay,
Yeah.
so Amnesiac, you know, for everyone watching this video, I do like this album. I do think it's a good album. It's just so weird and experimental. Like, I like it, but it's just not for me. I think there are songs on it that I like, or at least moments of songs.
So I have a question
And
here. Would you say that this
what's
is
up?
where you start liking all of the Radiohead albums as albums?
I would say yes.
Cool.
For sure. Because I do
I'm
think,
not
like
there
I said,
yet.
I do think this album is good. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, this is a studio album for sure, but to me it does, and again, this is gonna offend people, but to me it does kind of come off as like a Kid A B-sides.
No, that's what
And maybe
everyone
that's just because it
says.
was. Oh, really?
That's a
Okay.
pretty
Well,
normal opinion, I
I just
think.
don't understand the community. Well, that's good that people would at least understand that. But
They're
like,
all
maybe
wrong.
it's just because they're all wrong. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just because they're, and I do think this is, like, for sure this is an album, but you kind of get that just as a feeling. For me, just because they were recorded around the same time, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
just outright say like this is a B-sides collection. I wouldn't go
Mhm.
that far, but that is interesting,
Yeah.
and there's stuff I like on it, which is good.
I'll get there. I'll say what I think about that point, because
You're like
earlier
I'll
I
save this
said
album.
they're all wrong. They're not actually wrong. I just don't think it's a very nuanced opinion. You know, people write it off because it sounds like that. And
Oh no, I wouldn't just write it off by
yeah.
any means. It's
Yeah,
just
you
not
said
for
you like
me.
it as an album. That's a little bit different than a lot of people. But yeah, a
Uh-huh.
lot of people do say the B-sides comment.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'll talk about my love for it a bit later, I guess. Okay. Next up on my list is A Moon-Shaped Pool. I forgot what it was called there for a sec.
Moon-shaped pool. And my next one is also a moon-shaped pool.
Oh, look at this.
Cool. So
yeah.
We agree.
This is where I start liking all of their albums from here on out as albums. A Moon-Shaped Pool is ridiculously good. Seriously, it's ridiculously good. The gap between the Bends and A Moon-Shaped Pool in my list is enormous. Yes, I think that A Moon-Shaped Pool, when it came out, it was kind of like, gosh, I love it so much. Like, I wonder like how this is going to fit in with my already standing opinion of Radiohead. That was how I was thinking when it came out. It's like, dang, this whole thing. I mean, it's a very exciting listen. I don't think there's a bad track on the album. There's tracks that I don't like, but I don't think that's because they're bad tracks. I think that's just because I think that they I don't know. I'm just not as interested in the idea, but I don't think they're bad ideas. I'm just less interested in the ideas. I think there's like 3 songs. Like I remember when Burn the Witch came out, I was really disappointed. It was like the first single. And like, I remember when Radiohead disappeared from the whole internet and they like deleted their website and all their social media. And obviously everyone's like, whoa, what the heck is going on? Radiohead's doing something on the internet. And then they made this Instagram page, and then they published a video that was part of the music video for Burn the Witch, which was exciting, except the Instagram video made it seem terrible because I didn't like the song that was playing. And then the video came out on YouTube, and I watched the video and I didn't like the song. So I said, oh, what the heck is this? And then Daydreaming came out, which was actually fantastic. And then that music video is also pretty fantastic. And so that was like a plus. But the other thing about when Daydreaming came out, the second single, was that it was so soft and somber. And so it was like, okay, it's a really good song, but do I really want Radiohead to go in this direction for a whole album? And then the album came out, and the thing is that they sort of did go in the direction that I was kind of worried about, but it's really good. And it's not like they completely were in that direction, but they sort of did. They did the softer, the more really sad thing. It's a very, very sad album. It truly is. And of course, there's a bit of Tom York situation with a divorce. You know, there's some of that I think comes into this album. There's so much that's very, very interesting about this album. I guess maybe I should say the other songs I don't really like very much. Those are, wow, I forgot the name of one of them. Hold on a sec. Oh yeah, Hot Take, Full Stop is a boring song. And I also didn't really care very much about the numbers. Those are the three songs. So it's Burn the Witch, Full Stop, and the numbers.
Mhm.
Every other song on this album I really, really like listening to, and I'll pretty much never skip. You know, I guess I might skip that Tinker Dinky Dinky song sometimes, but it's still cool to listen to. So I probably won't skip it, but it's skippable, I guess, but I kind of still like to listen to it. Obviously it's not really much of a song, it's just kind of there, but I like it. It's part of the album. I mean, there's so much to
Good.
say. Man, what's like my favorite stuff on it? I don't know. Glass Eyes, I think, is underrated. It's ridiculous. It's such a good song. Oh yeah, and the songs are like in alphabetical order for anybody who didn't notice that. Yeah, Glass Eyes is really, really cool. Desert Island Disc is also really cool. I love the guitar. Sounds beautiful and amazing. Yeah, it was a really interesting direction for Radiohead to go in that, like I said, it was a direction that I was worried that they were going in, but then they did it and it was good. It's cool. Radiohead challenged me as a listener when I got into them, and they come out with an album in 2016.
They still are.
Still challenging me, man. It's
That's cool.
I wouldn't say it's like a super challenging album, but I would say the challenge really was just that it wasn't what I was expecting. And they, I mean, my own personal taste is I really, really like it. And so from here on out, man, it
only gets better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about from here on out these albums. I really, really like.
Wow.
Yeah. You go ahead.
So this album is very good. I don't think I enjoy it as much as you do, and I think maybe honestly because I don't know it as well as some of these others. Like as we get into my how much we have left? Top 5, top 4 of these albums that I really, really like, and as you get in the albums I'm like, and also because this is one I don't own but I want to own, which is cool. The song, but yeah, this album is, before I get to the songs, the album is so haunting. Lots of piano, which, I like piano. I like playing piano, so that's cool. But also, it's just, yeah, it's really haunting. It's really emotional, really sad. The song Daydreaming, the one you mentioned, I think is by far my favorite on here. It's just mesmerizing. And definitely one I need to listen to more because I love it. And also for them to, because if you look at our order here, to go from King of Limbs to this, whether you like Moonshaped Pool or not, I think just make to in terms of style, to go from King of Limbs to Moonshaped Pool is just insane. For them to, I guess you could call it a comeback. I don't really know, but I like the album
Makes
a
sense.
lot. The more I listen to, the more I get involved, the more I like it, which is cool.
Yeah.
I think you really covered everything on this. Yeah, and I forgot the songs were in alphabetical order, but I did know that. So that's funny.
Yeah, it's
And
just
that
funny.
they would, because of course they would intentionally do that, but it's actually funny. And yeah, very very good album, and one that I want to own on disc. Also, the song Desert Island Disc has disc in the title, and disc is spelled with a K, so that's cool.
Ooh. Yeah. There were some things you said that I want to reflect upon. Yeah, the piano. Very kind of new for them. They've done piano stuff in the past, but this was very piano heavy, I would even say. There's a lot of piano that's very important. And they use the piano in some very interesting ways. They kind of do weird loops to it and kind of add a ton of reverb and make it ring out like crazy. And yeah, there's a lot of really fun piano stuff on this album. They really use that to a really they use it in a creative way, piano. Very nice approach to that. And then yeah, when you go from the King of Limbs to this, yeah, it really is sort of a comeback. It's, and surely they had that in their mind. I mean, I don't know how much they really care about what their fans think of their music, but I think that they know that the King of Limbs was sort of a letdown for a lot of people. Um, and I'm sure that they genuinely like the album, but I'm sure they're also aware of the public's perception of it. But there is like, you can hear that they did make King of Limbs in songs like Full Stop, which is a song that I don't like. In like Identikit, maybe you can hear some. Identikit's pretty cool. Yeah, that is kind of an interesting, going from that to this. But yeah, before we move on to the next album on the list, I'm noticing on our list that 4 of the albums are the same for both of us. And then, of course, the very contentious, at least between us, you have Amnesiac and
Yep.
The Bins remaining in both of
Uh-huh.
our categories. And so I'm seeing, so far we've ranked 3 albums in the same place, and then the 2 contentious
And
ones
then
quite
that,
quite differently.
what
Um,
what is that? Because you're like,
yeah,
this
and
this.
I have a feeling that we're going to. Well, I mean, obviously, we'll see where we rank the Bins and Amnesiac for the future, because we've seen where we've ranked them so far. But going forward, I am curious about some others of these albums. And of course, we've talked about Radiohead before, so I'm making certain predictions in my mind
Uh-huh.
about exactly how you'll rank them, but I'm not quite sure.
Sure.
But I think it would be fun at this point to guess what each other is going to pick,
Okay.
and then see if we're
Mm.
right.
Yeah, because we've talked before for sure, but I don't remember your exact list. At
Mm-hmm.
least I don't think I remember it.
Sure.
Um,
Well,
cool.
here's what I'm gonna guess for you, because yeah, I don't remember yours either. I remember like
Uh-huh.
certain things, and I know I remember our dispute about the Bins and Amnesiac. I recall this.
Of course.
Yeah, I think your next pick is Kid A.
Wait, okay, this is me. This is you. So
I'm
so right
correct.
here, this is a, oh no, I was just gonna put it here because that was a guess.
Okay,
Um,
you can put the
but
guess. It's more work for you
um
if I'm wrong, but yeah, you can put the guess.
well, in the past when we like lined them all up, our guesses, but that was like top three, not like, top five.
Oh, true,
Well,
true. I
I guess
remember.
I'll stick with this. Um, so, oh wait, hold on. I'm trying to remember what your top three. Okay, so this is you up here. So I'm trying to think. 1, 2. I'm gonna guess. Wait, I'm just trying to like remember things in my head. So
I'll
I'm
give
gonna
no
guess.
hints.
I'm gonna guess for you. OK Computers, your number 5 is what I want to say
Okay.
in that. So what is your number 5?
Okay, computer.
Okay, and that's actually the same for me. It's my number 5 as well.
Boom. Okay, so we agree again.
So we are gonna.
But
This is gonna be like a boring video, and because except for just this thing, we're not
yeah,
gonna. We're gonna
I
be like,
know.
oh yeah, that's okay. That's the perfect place for that album. Sure.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I mean, I think that I know the rest of your list now, but I could be wrong. Uh, you probably know the rest of mine too now. Yeah, I
There's two.
think so.
There's two that I'm not certain on for you, but there's two that I'm pretty sure on. But we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Okay, computer. Said by people on the internet to be the greatest album of all time.
And it is.
Yeah, it sure is. This album is really good. It is very, very good. Um, but I don't know. I don't understand what the wild hype about it is, and I don't think a lot of people do. That's just a weird internet thing. I don't know how it happened, but it did, and everyone said that they love it so much, and now it's kind of a meme album. Man, okay, let me just talk about what I like about it. This album did a lot of unique things. Uh, it got quite a bit more artistic here for Radiohead. They kind of amped up their art rock thing. This is kind of whenever they entered into that. And of course, there's elements from before, earlier in their career, whenever they did stuff like that, of course. But this is really where they kind of were like, you know what? We're not just making like indie rock, you know? We're going to make some pretty, it's conceptual. Okay computer, it really becomes kind of a concept here with that you know pig in a cage on antibiotics, whatever that song's called, I
Yep.
forgot, but
What's it? Fitter Happier? That
yeah,
thing?
that interlude, fitter happier,
Uh-huh.
you know and I guess I'll just say my favorite song on the album because I'm pretty confident in my choice about that. Oh, swallow. Okay. It's called Climb Up the Walls. I really like that
Yes.
song. It builds to quite the ending. And then at the end, whenever he's like screaming, and it's interesting for Tom York to just scream. And he's just screaming. And it's really awesome.
Huh?
I remember the first time I heard it, because it's so famous and everyone's like, you should check out OK Computer because it's Radiohead. And so I was checking it out and it was wild to me that he screamed. And so it really stood out as unique to me in Radiohead's discography. And yeah, so that's just one part of it, of course. But yeah, Climb Up the Walls, that's my favorite song on this album. Yeah, this is an album that I kind of go like back and forth on because I think that it's such a good album, but usually whenever I want to listen to Radiohead, it's not a go-to for me. And I'm not sure I've really pinpointed the reason as to why that is because it is so good. But it's like an album that I love listening to, but I don't know as well. And I guess maybe that's sort of similar to something like, I guess you could say that's sort of like the Bins, because like when I listen to it, I can tell it's better than Pablo Honey, but none of it stands out to me. And I guess that's sort of like OK Computer. Like it's all actually awesome, but for some reason it just doesn't stick with me as
Yeah,
much. And I'm not
that's
sure
fair.
why. But yeah, because like I don't know OK Computer top to bottom like I know. Like I know A Moon-Shaped Pool better than I know OK Computer. And I know the other 4 albums on my list better than I know OK Computer. But that's where OK Computer goes. It's a good enough album to be better than the other ones, on the list so far. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. I would say that, like, I mean, I could continue to name songs and moments, but yeah, that's what I'll say about OK Computer.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, computer. Trying to think of where I want to start talking about this one. It's lots of great stuff. I think my favorite song on this album is what's the third one? Subterranean Homesick Alien, which might say is my favorite Radiohead song out of all of them, of any album.
Wow.
I just love it.
It's a great song.
Which
Yeah.
it's just so ethereal, but it's just so like the and it's like it's just so hard hitting and this big like burst of energy, and I love it. What else? I do really like Fitter Happier, that interlude, Pig in a Cage, and just I love how creepy it is. And I don't think it's one of my favorites, or like my most favorite on the album, but like it's one that I also, it's funny because I don't really, and also with the piano in that one as well. But what I was going to say was I don't really think about lyrics as much, but with this one, the meaning of it being like um, I different interpretations. I think it's about a robot who is just losing his humanity and is becoming this like just desensitized thing, and I think is super interesting and also like really relevant even today, because like it's really, I could make the analogy, cell phones, because that's like a really easy thing to bring up, but I think it is like really powerful. I don't know, it's just always stuck with me, and I feel like it's one, maybe you'll know, that Radiohead fans don't like as much, but the whole album. What else about this? Oh, also people talk about, I've seen people before online say like, what is the saddest Radiohead song? And for me, it's two of them, for Lucky and The Tourist. To close the album on those two songs, I think is just like the most devastating, just crushing thing. But I really like it. And yeah, I do like the screaming and climbing up the walls is very good. Okay, one other thing. So my take on this album, the song Exit Music, I think is boring. I don't know why people, I think people really love that song, but I think it's boring. But I think that's the only one I would say I just don't like. I think I at least like every other song, which is good.
I think a lot of people think that song's beautiful, but yeah, I find it tricky to engage with as well. I do think it's beautiful, but and Radiohead has some other type of that kind of category of songs in their discography, and I would say of that category of kind of like sort of boring but like beautiful songs, it's kind of in the lower end of that category of their discography. So yeah, I definitely feel you there. Yeah, interesting points on this album, to talk about. I definitely think that Lucky is one of their saddest songs. I definitely think you're right about that. And yeah, The Tourist, that is too, absolutely. Yeah, cool. And yeah, you're saying your number one Radiohead song too, the Subterranean
Homesick Alien.
Yeah, Homesick Alien.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of like what's my favorite song ever, and like I'm not for sure, but like on that, I don't know, it's the one I think as a particular song, it's the one I go back to the most, outside of another one of these that we'll get to, which I call my go-to album.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Very cool. Yeah, and cool. All right, yeah, so let's move on to our next pick, and I think we should keep guessing. Okay, last time I guessed Kid A, I'm guessing the same thing again.
All right.
I'll just keep guessing it until I'm right.
Yeah, just keep guessing it until it. I'm gonna guess for you. I'm between two of them. I wanna wait. Hold on. Did I? Okay, no. I'm confused about word. Which, this is my road. This is your road. I want to say your next one is Amnesiac. Is my guess for you.
So was I right?
Yes, you were right. This is my fourth place.
You were also right.
Okay, good. I knew this was either this one or in fourth or another spot.
Sure. Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, here we are. Um, okay, let's talk about Amnesiac. Uh, yeah, my basic qualm about Amnesiac or people's opinions about Amnesiac, the whole B-side thing, whatever. Radiohead has done that their whole career. They're always bringing back songs.
Yep.
You know, think about
Uh-huh.
True Love Waits. That's a good example. They played that song live almost their
Oh
whole
yeah.
career, and then they bring it back. You know, that's like one obvious example of that. And then when you look at their live stuff, they do the same thing, and then all of a sudden that song will appear on an album later, even though they've been playing it. I mean, Radiohead just releases songs on their studio albums when they're done, when they're good
Uh-huh.
songs. You know, people who say that Amnesiac is like B-sides from Kid A, I think that they're like equating that with like they're the throwaways from Kid A or the ones that didn't make the cut. And I would say that that's completely not the Radiohead approach to making
Uh-huh.
music. Otherwise, they
Right.
probably wouldn't release it, or they'd call it B-sides. Because they do that sometimes. They call things B-sides. What Amnesiac is yes, they were songs that were written at the same time as Kid A, and I guess at the time they felt like they were not complete songs, and so they did not release them. And then they kept working, and then when they were complete songs, they released them. I think that's
Uh-huh.
actually the correct way to think about how Radiohead approached what Amnesiac is. I mean, it's like everyone who says that Amnesiac, they write it off because it's just a bunch of B-sides. I think they disagree with Radiohead because I don't think that's what Radiohead thinks about it. They think like this song didn't need to come out until it was done. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think there are similarities to Kid A. So much similarities to Kid A that I think that Kid A overshadowed it, and I think that comparison is also, it kind of plays into why people don't like Amnesiac as much. Maybe it was a bit of a letdown, and they can think of it like it was throwaways because in comparison to Kid A, it is not as good of an album as Kid A is. That's my opinion, and I think that's a ton of people's opinion. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that likes Amnesiac better than Kid A. And I'm certainly not that person. Um, you know, sometimes it's fun to have controversial music opinions, but this is not one of mine. Kid A is a better album than Amnesiac, um, in my opinion. Yeah, I would like to meet somebody who thinks otherwise. But yeah, this album as a whole, I do think it feels a bit different than Kid A. This album feels a bit um it's interesting. I think that there's more focus on this album than Kid A, especially because kind of the approach of Kid A is kind of random. Um, you know, there's a lot of entropy involved in Kid A. It's kind of like from song to song and from lyric to lyric. It's like, what does that even mean? What did he just even say? What is this wild sound that I'm hearing? And why is this song after this song in the sequence? That's so ridiculous. Um, and you know but there certainly is a lot of kind of crossover between the two in terms of things and sounds that they're experimenting with, and they're also kind of like moving in a different direction of rock music where it's more art than it is rock, but I would call it art rock, you know. But I would say for both Kid A and Amnesiac that's kind of the case. You know, there's a lot more electronics involved. But yeah, this album, I think this album even feels more like an album than Kid A, but I think the material on Kid A is better than this one. And I think the reason that is just because, yeah, it's this album was it feels more like an album because it wasn't the same chaos that Kid A tried to be. And I like this album as an album
Sure.
really well. I think everything about it, the album experience of it is terrific. If I had to pick favorite songs, tricky. I mean, Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna look up the track list. Well, okay,
Yeah,
like the one that's Polk.
yeah. Polk
That's
Revolving Door.
yeah. I love that, and then also like Knives Out is also really good. But I do want to look
Sure.
up the track list too, just to look at it.
Yeah. Do you want me
Oh,
to
and like
talk while
Hunting
you're
Bears
looking
is
things up?
rad.
Uh-huh.
Hunting Bears is good as well. Um, yeah, this. Oh yeah. I
I
mean,
will
yeah,
say that Amnesiac, it's tight as an album,
yeah, it
which
is.
surprisingly, you look how many different ideas the songs are.
Mhm.
And Kid A, and we'll get to that for both of us. For Kid A, is this? It's kind of, it does a lot. Amnesia, it feels more stripped back, I guess, in a way. But that's the other thing, because people, the other thing that made me think that this is not a B-sides, I guess, if we're still on that, but I was like, this is not a B-sides, because it sounds, the I guess the mood, the vibe it gives off, like, it sounds very different than what you hear on Kid A, which I think is interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Kid A does kind of a lot of different kind of wackier things than this. This is more of, it feels like they're more focused, and it's like kind of depressing sort of sound, and it kind of as the album goes along. Looks like my laptop's about to die. So I have to plug this thing in and then
Oh,
hurry
go
to
ahead.
rescue it from dying. Okay. Okay. Don't die on me.
Oh, and Knives Out is a good song. I forgot to say that earlier. I like that song.
Absolutely. And I need to see that movie too, Knives Out. I have not seen it.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. And yeah, when I'm looking at the track listing of it, yeah, I think I basically said what I need to say about it.
Cool.
Yeah. It certainly does sound quite a bit different than Kid A, and I do think it's the album experience of it is really good. I think that this is really underrated, and I love listening to it. Yeah. Um,
Cool.
and this is one that's like I don't skip. I don't skip songs on this at all, ever.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you say what you want to say about Kid A?
With Kid A, I guess just a little more
Yeah.
about, or I guess why I put it, because that's usually the debate, at least, with these best Radiohead head albums, or even just, best ever albums. Okay, Computer and Kid A, which one's better? And you'll notice that neither of those is my number one, but I still like both of them a lot. Kid A, I feel like it really puts you in that, like, this apocalyptic world, and it's, you're right from the beginning, the everything in its right place on the keyboard, da 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 da, da, just that makes me like want to hear the whole album.
Yeah.
It, and I used to, this is the one example I look back at as one I used to not like at all. I listened to it like over and over, and I didn't understand the hype. And then when me and you started talking about Radiohead, I listened to it again, and I all of a sudden it was like flipping a switch. I thought it was great. Yeah, obviously, national anthem with
Yep.
the bass song is, it's it really, I feel like it shouldn't work almost, because it's just the same thing, and there's just this all da, 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 and then the sound just around it, but as it gets
Yeah.
bigger and bigger, and then adds the brass instruments, and that into, How to Disappear Completely, which is a really quiet
Yeah.
song, and it is one I could go on about. Like, again, the flow of all of these, but I think it's a really good one.
I'm kind of
What are
curious what
some
you
of
think about the song Kid A with the weird computer vocals.
I don't like that one as much, but I like the end when you get that, like, swell, like the orchestral. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it gets really big and kind of like fades out at the end. I
Yeah.
think that's really really pretty, or a cool moment. Um, I think my favorite song besides National Anthem, my favorite song was Morning Bell, because again, I
Yeah.
really like the bass in that one. But I think my favorite song more recently is Optimistic, because it just
Cool.
rocks, and it's just, and everything on that song is so just in your face and crazy. But I love it. What
Mhm.
else? What else? Something else I was gonna say about this one. I don't remember. I'm looking at the track list right now on my phone, which I don't know why, because I am actually really familiar with. Oh, I'm familiar with this one. I was gonna say the more I listen to this, the more I like it, which is good. Yeah, just it makes me want to, like, after we record this video, just want to start hearing it again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's very kind of off the deep end for Radiohead. You know, they did OK Computer, and that kind of blew everyone's mind. And then Kid A came out, and it was
Uh-huh.
just like,
Uh-huh.
this just fell apart. You know, it's sort of like whenever people talk about like contemporary painting, because I like to paint, they say things like the best contemporary painters know how to paint super duper well, and sometimes they're even like prodigies, like in Picasso's case. Um, but then they kind of like broke the rules in really effective ways, and a term that sometimes comes up is that eventually these like really brilliant artists, they kind of snap, and then whenever they start getting into their more like contemporary or modern paintings, a term that they kind of use is that they're kind of like forming a new cosmology. uh and I sort of think that that's what happens on Kid A with Radiohead. They're kind of an indie rock band, and then OK Computer comes out, and things are starting to get really negative and depressing, and but also incredibly interesting. And then I think on Kid A, it's just like there are no rules anymore. All that just
Uh-huh.
snapped. You know, it's kind of like Frederick Nietzsche or something, like the quote from Nietzsche, God is dead and we have killed him. You know, that's something that Nietzsche said, which is, you know, I think that like listening to Kid A is sort of the effect of this idea. You know, I think OK Computer
Uh-huh.
is where that snap, it's like on the way, and then Kid A is just kind of like accepting that it all really did fall apart. Yeah, and I think that that the painting parallel, there are several artists who kind of go in a pattern like that, and then they end up just kind of snapping and then making some very interesting artwork. And yeah, it's maybe that's the mark of like really great contemporary artists, and I guess that's the mark of Radiohead or something. But I don't know, I think that's interesting. It's interesting to me anyway. But also I get to
Cool.
talk about Kid A later, so I shouldn't say too much now. But yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. Let's guess the next one for each other. I think that your next one is the Bends.
That is correct. I shouldn't have
E.
said that yet until I guessed yours, but yes. Well, I was gonna guess Kid A for you, but you said later, which makes me think you put it higher. But I think I'll just guess that is your third place as Kid A. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct. And I said later tactically to confuse you.
It is. It was later, yes, and
Yeah.
you're right.
Mm-hmm. Relatively later. Yeah. And yeah, so you were not tricked. Good job. Yeah, that almost worked. Dang it. But yeah, cool. So let's hear you talk about the Bends.
For sure. Yeah, this is the most controversial opinion as far
Probably.
as Radiohead fans go. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anyone else who'd put this album this high. Especially, I mean, even people who like this album, especially compared to like your powerhouses, Kid A, OK Computer, even Amnesiac. Um, but I think part of it is I this was an album that kind of I'm trying to remember which one I actually listened to. Like the first Radiohead album that I liked, and I said that In Rainbows was the one that really got me into the whole discography, but I think the Bends was the first one that I really liked and was like really fascinated by. Obviously a lot of what they would do artistically was not there yet, that whole art rock, but the Bends, it's simple, it's straightforward, it just rocks. Every song on the first half, everything up to Nice Dream, I think is just amazing. And then after that, I think it goes down a little bit, but I still like it. Oh, and also I should mention that this one and my next two, my top three, are the ones that I think are like, because Kid A, OK Computer and Kid A are great for sure, but like I guess if I'm trying to think of like a tier list or something, I don't know, but like these top three I think are all like awesome. Which again, who would ever put the Bends this high and say it's awesome? But
Pretty
yeah,
unique.
it's still one I enjoy a lot. It's honestly one I don't know as well as my
Because
top
they
two,
all
and I think it's
sound the
because, well,
same.
that's what I was gonna say. Every song sounds the same. So there's that.
Mhm.
No, it's funny. You cut me off. I was literally just about to say that. Um, but um, this album is exciting for me.
Mhm.
Okay, let's hear you talk more about Kid A if you want before people dislike the video.
Kid A is, yeah, I mean, I talked about the whole snap thing. When I listen to this album, I think it really does come from a place of kind of like spite and disgust. I really do sense that. I think that also they're kind of like, OK Computer kind of made them pop stars. And I think Kid A is sort of a reaction, and it definitely is. And as a person who, like, pop music that's made to like sell and whatever, and like the whole pop star culture and everything, that's not my thing. Very not into uh like the idea of something being pop. There's pop music that I like for sure, but that's to set out and make pop music. I don't see the goal. It's definitely like sometimes that can be artistic, but it's usually just to sell. And so I think for Radiohead being pop stars was this really weird thing. Um, and I think it makes me think of how other artists reacted to becoming pop stars. For example, there's like the band Muse. Um, Muse kind of reacted the opposite way, because there was that scene in the movie Twilight, the baseball scene where Supermassive Black Hole, the Muse song, played. And I think probably the reason that song played is because the author of the Twilight series, there's like I think she dedicated the book, the first Twilight book, or she made some kind of note to her favorite band, Muse. And so I think
Really?
that yeah. And so I think they put that song in the movie kind of for her, like as a cool thing to do for the author, that's very cool. And that is also a really good song, Supermassive Black Hole. But after that song came out, Muse kind of reacted to their new massive pop audience, full of everyone who's a Twilight fan, a lot of moms too. And from there on out, Muse's music career just sucked. That's my opinion. They just like went straight down the pop avenue, and then like Uprising came out, that song, and like terrible. Yeah, Muse just like went straight down the tubes. They became pop stars and kind of just reacted terribly and just fit right into that mold and made their money. Radiohead, you could say they did the more honorable thing or something, although I'm not sure there's really a code of ethics when it comes to reaction to being a pop star, really. uh, Although you don't really want to be the Justin Bieber type of pop star and start peeing in a bucket in the street. Maybe there's probably a line drawn
That's
there.
worse.
Yeah. But it yeah, I think that Kid A is a reaction to the becoming pop stars, basically. And so it fits the kind of after OK Computer, what's next? Kid A. It fits that narrative, but then it also just fits like OK Computer exploded in popularity. And it fits that kind of like personal band narrative as well. Although it seems like Kid A is the least personal album in Radiohead's discography, and I think by choice. You know, it's very kind of alien and machine, and very very entropic, very very much chaotic. But it's I think that kind of is freedom in a way for the band, because they're, you know, they really broke away from any kind of like traditional song form, and they're really just going for art here. And I guess that's something I really like, is artistic music. I'll always find it really really intriguing. But you'll notice it's my number 3 on the list, because I think the other two, which we both have next, and I think we'll rank them in the same order, but we'll see. I think that their approach to art on Kid A, I think that's just kind of what it's all about. It's art, and they really are kind of, they just don't want the pop thing. They don't want to be pop stars, and they're saying no, this is who we are. And what's so interesting about that is that it kind of took Radiohead from like a pop fan base to like a cult fan base, and it was just as strong, absolutely just as strong. And it's not really like they lost their pop fans, you know, they kind of stuck around. I think because it's like, it's hard to say that Kid A sucks or something. It's just kind of perplexing. And so it's not really like they lost fans. It's weird, because an album like Kid A you would think would alienate people, but I'm not sure that it really did. But it is, you know, there's definitely song in Kid A. Like you said, Optimistic, and then maybe another one would be like Idioteque, and then of course National Anthem. I don't think it's possible to dislike National Anthem. That song is so friendly and approachable, but also so ridiculously great.
Yep.
With the horns, the way that song kind of explodes and develops is kind of unlike anything else. You know, there's really a lot of great moments and ideas in Kid A. And when I listen to it, I just really feel like I'm listening to something that is very special. And, you know, of course, a lot of people's reaction to it is that. And I just think that it actually is going to hold up over time and be a really serious classic in a lot of ways. Like in terms of its like impact on music. Because it kind of broke rules and showed people what you can actually do with music too. You know, it's hardly a rock album, but it is the rock, like it still feels like a rock album because it's such an attitude. And so I have no problem calling it a rock album because of that. Maybe that's what I'll say. That's Kid A to me.
Cool.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and for them to, you know, to be on top of the world with OK Computer, and then do something just completely different, but then in addition to not completely like have people or have fans hate it, for people to still like it, for them to take such a huge risk and then for it to pay off is super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to the next one. My second place is In Rainbows, which means that my number 1 is Hail to the Thief. And I think it's the same for you, but we'll see.
That is correct. Both of those for me.
Mm-hmm. So now we can take a look at our entirety of our ranking right here.
Oh yes, our disc ranking.
Yes, very interesting. And
it's funny because we'll like be dead on, like we agree the exact same thing, and then just be completely different.
Yeah.
But
I think it's the Kid A and Amnesiac thing. That's the difference. In the bands, yeah.
I like your list a lot. I think it's very good. I also, maybe it's because you didn't put OK Computer or Kid A as number 1.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people do, and I don't. Yeah. I didn't put either of those in even the second place either.
I think there's a reason.
I like that.
I think we're not as old. You know? I think that like us getting into Radiohead was In Rainbows, and that's
Right.
kind of why. And I mean, that's probably why In Rainbows is so high on our list. And I'm sure that people who were like cognizant of music that was coming out in 1997 when I was 1 year old, probably who were like huge OK Computer fans, like whenever that huge explosion happened for them, that when In Rainbows came out, they were kind of like, yeah, this is kind of different, you know? But to people like us, it was kind of a life-changing album.
Oh yeah.
But here are some things I'd like to say about In Rainbows. I think that it is this is gonna sound weird, but I think it's true. I think that it's the only perfect album in Radiohead's discography. I think, and I'm saying that about the number 2 album on my list, which is interesting. And I'm not sure if I think that about any other discographies of bands, but I definitely do think about it with Radiohead. In Rainbows doesn't have a flaw. This album, it's so concentrated, you could say, like in a chemistry sort of way. It's concentrated. It's just, there's nothing diluted about this album. Every single idea is incredibly fresh and incredibly well executed. And this album has so many ideas. And it's amazing that all of them hit so hard. It is amazing. And like just going through this track list in my head right now, you know, you're going from, you know, 15-step body snatcher, nude, and then weird fishes, arpeggi, all I need, you know, you just go all the way freaking through the thing. The way, I mean, this is, every song is an absolute masterpiece. And I think that something about this album in particular is that, you know, it has all of the experimentation and interesting stuff that Kid A has, but they're focused on writing good songs too, you know. And this is kind of like every member of Radiohead kind of showing at their peak in a way. You know, they just kind of got on like a creative stride, and it's like everything they touch kind of turned to gold. And that's really what this album is. It's moment after moment. And like you're listening to a song, and then like something happens and it's like, wow, that sounds amazing. And then 3 seconds later, something else happens and it's, wow, that sounds amazing. It is the most engaging. It's honestly one of the most engaging albums ever. It really is, like, of any band. I think that it's so dense with moments, but it's also so fresh. And it's yeah, I mean, it sounds very like conflated, you know. It's like making a really big deal out of this. I mean, honestly, that's kind of my reaction to it, though. You know, whenever I listen to In Rainbows, I can't put the thing down. It's like chips; you can't just eat one. And I love chips.
Right.
It's very yeah. So In Rainbows is sort of like chips.
It's the perfect analogy. Yeah. I love it.
Hey, of course, there's a lot of other interesting things about In Rainbows too. One of them being like the package that it came in, where they said like you could pay any price, like name your price for it, which completely shook like the music industry for a second. It was really bizarre. And I have it. It's like a paper sleeve case that and it like comes with stickers, and yeah, it's very interesting. You know, it's really cool. I don't know. It's so ridiculous how cool this album is. It's just, I don't know. That's just what it is. It's so cool. So cool. But yeah, maybe I can leave it there. I mean, I could write like inspired love letters to the In Rainbows album every day. But of course I have to get to Hail to the Thief as well. And I know that I've said some quite bold things about In Rainbows before I get to Hail to the Thief. But yeah,
Yeah,
so talk about
for
In
sure.
Rainbows.
Oh, I don't want to go on too long. I can make an entire video about how much I love I love this album.
Exactly. I'm
Um,
already thinking of new stuff to say about it.
it's kind of like what you said. It's so colorful, and there are just so many moments on it, and it's just mind blowing. And for me, I like Hail the Thief more, but I would say this is a close second place. It almost feels like a greatest hits, which that sounds weird, but like every song is just that good. And like I hear one, I listen to one, I'm like, and I'm looking through the track list. I start, looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, I want to listen to this song and this song, and I'm like, wow, I just want to hear all of these. And then I'm like, okay, I'll just listen to the whole album. But like, but for them to have every song that good on just a regular, just a studio album, and also I've talked about before. I remember in the past thinking like, and like some of these other albums, I'm like, oh, these are pretentious, or like, I don't understand these. In Rainbows is super artistic, but it doesn't really come off as pretentious at all
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so fun.
Yeah, it
It's just
jams.
the most fun thing to listen to. And I think for people who want to get into Radiohead, I think OK Computer is a pretty safe place to start because it's
Absolutely.
it's it's where it's what everyone likes. But for me, I would also recommend, I don't know, but I would also recommend starting with In Rainbows, or at least listening to it early on, because that's kind of what got me hooked. It was actually, I think it was these my top three that really got me into the band, but especially In Rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I think my favorite song is House of Cards. Um, but I like all of them. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to remember what's the one, Faust Arp.
Yeah.
Is that's
Or like
that's just the
Faust or
shorter song,
whatever.
right? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But that's like a shorter song,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm trying to remember. Okay. But yeah, I remember I think it's the only one I'm not as I mean, because it's like it's an interlude, but all the other songs are all great.
There's some
So
pretty serious. Yeah, it's short. I wouldn't call it an interlude. I just call it a short song. I understand what you mean because it sort of is kind of intentionally incomplete sounding. And, there's no drums in it as
no,
well.
it's two. I'm looking. It is 2 minutes. I thought it was only like
Yeah.
a minute long, but it is okay. It is 2 minutes. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some, yeah, and there's like some like cello parts in it that are really nice. Yeah.
Uh huh.
Um, but hey, some other things that I thought about In Rainbows. I'm a drummer. I mean, the first time I heard 15 Step, like I said, was on that Grammy performance with like a whole high
Uh-huh.
school band. I mean, you know how often like during like any marching band, like high school and college, I would like play 15 Step on like my marching snare, just like when I'm chilling. And sometimes I still do it. And then also I think that 15 Step kind of like really influenced me because it has like two different snare sounds that it goes, like it has a higher one and a low one. Um Now anytime I set up my drums, I have at least two snares on any kit that I'm using. I have like my 10-inch
That's
popcorn snare
cool.
on the left, and then I have like my normal 14 at least. And then I also like to have like a really, really dry, low tuned piccolo snare. I mean, I'm kind of just going into my own drumming rant right now.
Drumming
But
video.
honestly, I think that one of the main reasons why I like to set up with more than one snare is because 15 Step has more than one snare sound.
Wow.
I mean it,
That's cool.
the influence of it on
Uh,
me is pretty huge. Um
one
yeah.
song.
One song. And I guess it was just like, because that's the song that really connected me to Radiohead, because I saw the
Uh,
performance of it with the marching band. And so the percussive element of that song, I mean, it's already extremely strong whenever you listen to the song, but since they made such a big deal out of it and it was like a high school drum line on stage at the Grammys,
uh,
I think that they made such a big deal out of the percussive thing that, I mean, as a young blossoming drummer, it just made sense to me. And it's like, yeah, everything about that's cool. Also, it's in 5/4. Duh. Like,
uh,
drummers love crap like that. How much fun is 5/4? I love 5/4. I really do. Um Yeah, that stuff's great, man. Yeah, that's another thing I thought about saying about In Rainbows. But all right, let's move on to Hail to the Thief. I think I will start this part of the discussion because I said some bold things. I said In Rainbows is the 10 out of 10, the perfect album from Radiohead. However, I like Hail to the Thief more. I find it more interesting, more intriguing, more kind of puzzling, and sort of like, I don't know, it's kind of more, In Rainbows, like you kind of said, it's kind of like a greatest hits, like in the way that it feels, which almost kind of takes away like substance, it's just such a jam. That's kind of how I approach In Rainbows.
Right.
I approach it for like all of the details, and I approach it for the jam. I would say I'm not exactly approaching it for the substance the same way I do the Hail to the Thief. Hail to the Thief, it's like Radiohead really has something to say, and they're saying it, and it's awesome. They're like really fired up about what they're doing. There's so many different ideas. When you go from 2 + 2 = 5, which is an absolute jam, and then it like really picks up steam towards the end, and it kind of like ends on a sour note at the end, and it's really cool. And then it goes into like a super electronic song, Sit Down Stand Up, which the way that song explodes at the end, I remember the first time I heard that, like I could tell the song was building to something, and it was creating like a ton of tension, and then you just hear all these beep-boop bops everywhere at the end whenever it explodes.
Raindrops.
It's like, yeah, it changes, like it built to the thing that I was expecting, but it basically like it built up tension to be resolved, and it resolved the tension in a way that I wasn't expecting. And that hits. That really hits. And then, of course, like Sail to the Moon, some of the best chord work Radiohead has done. I mean, it's really, really beautiful and like haunting as well. But those are track 1, 2, and 3. And the album only continues from there. Hail to the Thief. What an album. I mean, this is an album that can feel kind of long-winded, I think, which is another reason why it's maybe not like a 10 out of 10 perfect album, and it's not jammable the same way In Rainbows is, but it's such a really engaging and fun kind of challenging listen every single time. And I really don't know how you write an album like this. I really don't know how you get inside of the mind of the musicians who made Hail to the Thief. Everything else is kind of like, they were kind of in this state of mind. And that's interesting too. But this one, it's really a puzzle. It is really a puzzle. And there's just a lot to it. And I don't think I'm ever going to quite crack this one. I think that it will always kind of be bizarre to me, in the most thrilling way possible. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you what you said earlier about how In Rainbows is the one that I would recommend somebody get into to get started with Radiohead, because it introduces you to everything about Radiohead that you need to know to approach the rest of their career. It just kind of connects all the dots. But then Hail to the Thief, it is, I think it's the best. It's the one that I mean, when I listen to it, I just want to like keep replaying everything, and like I'll hear something and it's like I want to just hear this song to the end, but I think I'm going to back it up 30 seconds just to hear what the heck just happened again. I often experience that when I'm not even really sure that I've listened to Hail to the Thief like straight through without backing up, because I've listened to it straight through a ton of times, but I'm always like, what? I'm honestly not sure. I've just sat there and let it play. I just don't think I'll crack this one. And it is absolutely fascinating. So it's on the top for me.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's what I'll
awesome.
say. So there's
Yeah.
my number one, and it's
For
your number
me-
one too.
For me, for this one, I didn't really know how to put it into words, but then you said it. You said In Rainbows is a perfect album, but Hail to the Thief is so much more of a statement, and there's just so much going on that's so super interesting to get into and try to dig into, and like try to like I don't know what else was I gonna say on this one. I honestly don't know a lot about what specifically they were trying to say politically, like about George Bush or about what was going on at the time. But I still love how well they kind of did everything, and it's pretty much all great. You've got the straight ahead rock, the art rock, the electronic stuff, your electronics and things, and it all just kind of becomes this giant thing. And I guess in a way I like how, not to say that's bad, but kind of like how imperfect it is, or how kind of just how big and it is. And people say this, and that's the one thing, because it does feel long. Like you kind of it is challenging, like you said. You kind of have to sit through it, and then you rewind every every song. But like for oh crap, what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. That's just how excited I am about this. Um, I was gonna say I think even people in the band, some of the guys in the band, they've recommended like different track lists or this of this album, or like a way of making it shorter. I'm looking through it right now. I still don't think I would take out a single song.
Yeah, I
because
wouldn't either.
It's just so interesting. Let's get to some of my favorite songs. You mentioned Sail to the Moon. Love that one. I guess another one that's just absolutely beautiful. What's the one? Go to Sleep is another one where it gets in this whole like acoustic breakdown. Dun, 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 ba, ba, dun, and it just gets me every time. There. I know that's a popular one. That's the one that just rocks, but it's also like super engaging. And also Punch Up at a Wedding, which I think is another one of my all-time favorites. And also for, because you've got the bass, and then it's that piano, and then like everything just kind of comes, and then the guitar lead on that song is just so fun, because it's like it's like really high and everything. And then also when Tom York, I love when he's literally spitting into the mic, drunken punch up at a wedding. Just that line in particular is it's just a lot of fun and really works. I guess another thing I'd like to say about the flow, the song Mixomatosis and then the song Scatterbrain after. Mixomatosis is really big and buzzing and just insane. I think it's one of the loudest songs, and Scatterbrain is a lot quieter or a lot more colorful. And to me, it almost feels like that's like the aftermath of like
cool.
going Mixomatosis, and then it kind of cools down before you hit that final song, Wolf of the Door. Little things like that make this such a fascinating thing to listen to, and that's just one example. But I guess kind of like you mentioned at the beginning, the flow, because definitely 2 + 2 = 5 into Sit Down Stand Up into Sail to the Moon, and for them to do stuff like that it's incredible. It's a lot of fun. So I think that is what I have to say about that one.
I can't not mention We Suck Young Blood, particularly kind of towards the end where he's like singing We Suck Young Blood, and there's like those those kind of moments, and then that builds like that kind of instrumental section that kind of like repeats on that. And then Tom York's going crazy with the vocals, and then kind of the whole band's going ding, 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 ding. It's like, okay. I don't know what it's like. I don't know. It's just like really kind of desolate and angry. and they accomplish that sound so well. It's a really good like emotive moment in the album, and it's like one of my favorite moments here, and it makes it one of my favorite Radiohead songs. The gloaming as well is really wicked cool. So I just have to name drop the gloaming. But hey, we're done. You know, this was
Yay!
shorter than our Cure video because there was more
By a
albums for the
lot.
Cure. But hey, that was a lot of fun. It's cool to see our rankings here, and yes, we have plans to do more discography rankings. And there were some suggestions in the Cure ranking video of bands that people want us to rank, and I think that some of those suggestions are really cool. And we definitely are keeping that in mind. Right now, we have another band planned that we have ranked. Hopefully we can make that discography video soon. It will be well, I don't know. Maybe someone can solve this hint. It's a band that has 15 studio albums. It's a rock band. Good luck trying to solve that. Honestly, if somebody in the comments solves it, I'll just tell you. Big congratulations, or I'll shout you out in the video.
Yo.
I mean, maybe that's something people can Google though. I'm not sure. Maybe that's too easy of a hint. But if somebody figures it out, I mean, dang. But yeah, we definitely have plans to do more discography videos. I think this summer we didn't do as many discographies because there was like fun stuff to do all the time. And so we were kind of doing stuff. But now that like the mundane has hit and Joe's in Colorado working and I'm just back in school, it's kind of like on a regular schedule.
Yeah.
So I've got just kind of time to sit and do homework or whatever. And so, yeah, we'll probably do some more rank videos. Yeah, but this has been a great pleasure, Joe. Thank you for being inside of this
Thank
video.
you.
Yeah, and be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell when you subscribe, and leave a comment if you disagree with everything that me and Joe said.